3 days before the university entrance exam, I suddenly saw a number appear above everyone's head. I thought it was just a countdown to the exam. Until the day of the exam, when the apocalypse, with its extremely high temperatures, unexpectedly erupted. The sealed examination rooms became steaming cauldrons. No teacher or student in the school survived. After being burned alive in the classroom, I was reborn, returning to the exact day the number appeared. Only then did I understand that it was not a countdown to the university exam at all, but a countdown to the apocalypse. Xiaohe. What time is it that you're still sleeping in class? A familiar voice roared in my ear. I instinctively shot up. Look at that countdown clock. You have only 3 days left until your exam. What are you still dreaming about? The literature teacher clapped her hand sharply against the blackboard. I immediately saw the vivid red number 3 in the upper right corner of the blackboard. Didn't I already take the exam? The burning sensation on my skin was still fresh, and I unconsciously mumbled. The entire class burst into laughter. I think our star student has studied herself silly. High scores but a slow mind, she won't amount to anything in life. Teacher. That's Xiaohe, she'll get first place even with her eyes closed. Just let her be. My classmates, teachers, the classroom, the desks and chairs around me, everything was as familiar as in my memory. That's when it hit me, I had been reborn. Reborn 3 days before the university entrance exam. At this time, the heatwave apocalypse had not yet arrived. In my previous life, after the apocalypse erupted, to prevent public panic, the higher-ups ordered invigilators to lock the examination room doors, forcing us to complete the test. But they had severely underestimated the cruelty of the apocalypse. Before the final bell, the entire class had been turned into dried corpses in that giant steamer. I witnessed my skin burning, my fat melting and dripping onto the floor, and finally died in agonizing despair. In this life, I must fight for survival. When I looked up again, a number appeared above everyone's head. All of them were 3. Xiaohe, why are you spacing out? With this attitude, do you still intend to take the university exam? I slowly looked directly into the teacher's eyes. I'm not taking it anymore. As soon as the words left my lips, the entire class gasped in surprise. And I burst out laughing with excitement. Because in the reflection of the water glass, I saw the number above my head. It had increased from 3 to 5. Indeed, I hadn't guessed wrong. The number I saw was not a countdown to the university exam, but a death talisman for the apocalypse. Not participating in the exam had increased my survival days. But 5 days was still too little for me. To survive this apocalypse, I had to do more. With that thought, ignoring the shouts and protests behind me, I turned and rushed out of the classroom. Running to a phone booth, I hastily dialed my mother's number. Before I could even open my mouth, her questioning voice came from the other end. Xiaohe, have you grown wings? Your teacher told me you want to drop out of the university exam? I frantically explained. The apocalypse will be here in 3 days, if we take the exam, we'll surely die. We need to stock up on supplies, especially water. But before I could finish, my mother shouted, cutting me off. Xiaohe. I don't care what fit you're throwing, but I'm telling you, even if the apocalypse comes, you'd better die in that examination room for me. For all these years, our family has scrimped and saved to put you through school. If you don't get the top score in the province, don't call me your mother anymore. I let out a bitter laugh and asked her, Mom, do you truly love me? The icy voice on the other end chilled my heart. Instead of talking nonsense, go do a few more practice problems. The call was hung up without hesitation. I laughed at myself self-mockingly. How could I have forgotten? My family had always cared only about my achievements, never about my life or death. If that's the case, I could only wish them luck in fending for themselves. It was mid-June, midsummer, and the temperature had already exceeded 30 degrees Celsius. By the time I ran downstairs and dashed into the small convenience store, I was drenched in sweat. I gasped for breath, unable to speak for a long time. The store owner, an old woman, was fanning herself with a woven fan. Seeing me, she pulled out a chair for me to sit on, then gently patted my back to help me calm down. "Little girl, what's wrong? Don't rush, speak slowly." I clutched her hand, asking urgently. "Water, do you have water?" "As much as possible." She looked at me, puzzled, then pointed to the truck parked outside. "There it is, freshly delivered spring water. Enough to last a month. I'll take it all." I looked in the mirror, but only saw the number above my head increase to 15. "Oh dear, no, you can't. You won't use all that water, it'll just go to waste." The store owner was almost 80, explaining the apocalypse to her was impossible. I had to make up an excuse. "The pipes in our dormitory are broken, so we have to use water every day for washing, bathing, flushing the toilet." But she remained skeptical. "You're going home in 3 days after the exam, there's no way you'd use that much water, right? Home? Return to that cold, emotionless place, devoid of any familial warmth?" I was sure that once they knew I'd abandoned the exam, my parents would rather let me starve on the streets than let me step foot back home. Instead of wandering the streets, staying in the dormitory was much safer. Firstly, before the exam, to ensure the safety of the students, the school had implemented a closed management system. On the day of the exam, security was even tighter, outsiders could not enter the school at all. Secondly, my home was in a high-rise apartment, airy on both sides, with abundant light. The dormitory, however, was low, facing the shady side, with no sunlight year-round, so the temperature inside was always at least 5 degrees lower than outside. Thirdly, home only had one bathroom. If the apocalypse came, accumulated waste would decompose, producing toxic gases harmful to health. In contrast, the dormitory complex had public restrooms in the hallway, with many stalls and far from the living quarters, so there was no worry about health impacts. Considering all of this, I decided to stay in the dormitory to weather the apocalypse. I bowed my head, gritted my teeth, and pinched my arm hard, trying to force out a few tears. "I'll tell you the truth. I have a bit of a conflict with my family. I might even have to stay in the dorm for another month." The store owner was very soft-hearted, always treating us like her own grandchildren. Seeing me cry, she immediately softened. "Don't be scared, I'm here with you. If you're afraid staying alone in the dorm, just come find me." I looked at the number 5 hovering above her head, and my heart suddenly constricted. But I was just a normal high school student. I couldn't save anyone. So, I just managed a forced smile, waved and said, "Grandma, it's so hot, on the day of the university exam, please don't go outside." Finally, I used 500 yuan to buy 5 5-liter barrels of purified water and 15 packs of 550 milliliters bottled mineral water. The kind owner even had workers help me move everything into the dormitory. As the exam day approached, my roommates had all switched to boarding mode, and the empty bed spaces were perfect for storing supplies. I hid the large water bottles under the bed and shoved the bottled water packs deep into the storage cabinet. These were all shaded, dark corners, minimizing water evaporation under high temperatures. After tidying away the most important resources, I feigned illness to ask for time off school. Perhaps because they had heard teachers report my unusual behavior in class, the teachers didn't ask many questions and quickly agreed. "Xiaohe, is the exam pressure too much? Why don't you take a few days off and adjust your mindset?" Their suggestion was exactly what I wanted. Without classes, I would have more time to stock up on supplies and prepare for the coming horrific heat. "Thank you, teacher. I'll diligently study in the dormitory." Glancing at the number 3 above the teacher's head, I turned and left the office. Exiting the school gate, I headed straight for the nearest pharmacy. "Sister, do you sell fever-reducing patches here?" Seeing my urgency, the pharmacy assistant quickly handed me a few packs of cooling patches. But I stopped her hand when she went to close the cabinet. "All the patches you have left in the store, I want them all." She immediately covered the cabinet with her hand and shook her head, refusing. That won't do. The university exam is in a few days. I need to save some for the students and their parents. The university exam is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and my daughter is taking it this year too. But I have to work tomorrow and can't be with her. I hope she'll understand. I glanced at the number above her head, 25. It seemed she was one of the few fortunate ones in this disaster. Sister, try to spend time with your daughter in the days leading up to the exam. Of course. And you, if you're not feeling well, hurry home and rest. Don't let your parents worry. Looking at her happy face, I lowered my head, hiding the rising loneliness in my eyes. My parents had never worried about my safety or health. They only wanted me to stay in school 24/7 and study hard. Perhaps she sensed something, because as I turned to leave, she called out. Then she handed me 2 large bags of fever-reducing patches. She waved, urging me. Go on, little girl. Health is the most important thing. I nodded vigorously, my eyes blurred with emotion. No one had ever said that to me before. As soon as I stepped out of the pharmacy, my mother's call came in. Why did you spend so much money? What useless stuff did you buy? My mother's voice was cold, calm, and completely rational. But, if she had bothered to look closely for 2 seconds, she would have seen the money was spent at a pharmacy. I wasn't feeling well, so I bought some medicine. In my heart, I still held a glimmer of hope. Maybe she would ask, care, or at least apologize? The university exam is almost here. Don't waste time on pointless things. Besides, you're not that frail, are you? Just endure it a bit, and it'll pass. That money is enough for 2 one-on-one tutoring sessions. In that moment, my last illusions of family affection completely shattered. I know. I replied coldly, then decisively hung up. Time was pressing, so I rushed to other pharmacies and convenience stores, collecting more fever-reducing patches. Additionally, I bought several large containers of medical alcohol. Back at the dormitory, I immediately used plastic wrap to tightly seal the mouths of the water bottles and alcohol containers, trying to minimize evaporation under high temperatures. Then I added several layers of dark film around the bottles to limit direct sunlight. I also reinforced the storage cabinet with insulating tape and foam to minimize heat exchange with the outside. The next day, I decisively asked for another day off from school. I went to a large supermarket 2 kilometers from school, following my prepared list to buy supplies. The sales assistant saw 3 boxes of dried fruit, 5 boxes of compressed biscuits, 2 boxes of electrolyte water, and 1 box of mixed vegetable juice in my cart and asked in surprise. Little girl, why are you buying so much by yourself? These things can't replace meals. Why don't you buy some fresh fruit and vegetables? You're still growing at your age. Under extreme heat, fresh fruits and vegetables would quickly dehydrate and rot. This was the most effective way I could think of to supplement vitamins. Compressed biscuits were convenient and didn't require cooking, very suitable for a situation with power and water outages. I smiled and replied, Don't worry, Auntie, my family has a lot of pets, these dried things are for them. As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly remembered something and turned into the pet supplies section on the left. Do you have any cat litter that's good at absorbing moisture and deodorizing? The largest size, I'll take 5 bags. The employee immediately went to the back and pulled out a huge bag. The 40 kilograms bag is our largest, are you sure you need so many? I nodded without hesitation, and the sales assistant immediately beamed. If you buy over 1,000 yuan, we have free delivery service. I left the school address and completed the payment. This time, it was my father calling. Xiaohe, the supplementary card I gave you is for buying study guides and paying for tutoring, not for spending randomly like this. I calmly lied. Dad, I bought the review sets recommended by the teachers, 300 yuan per subject. The teacher said if I finish these sets, my exam score will definitely increase by at least 30 points. Hearing this, his voice immediately softened. Really? Then hurry up and focus on studying, don't waste time. I've told all our relatives and friends. You absolutely must get the top score in the province. I'm telling you, don't make me lose face. Without waiting for my reply, he hung up. Leaving the supermarket, I continued to the nearby electronics store. My goal was clear: solar-powered evaporative coolers that could have water added to increase cooling efficiency. Seeing me buy 10 evaporative coolers without hesitation, the sales assistant enthusiastically suggested, "Sister, why don't you try our air conditioners? They cool better, have air purification features, and save electricity." I shook my head, refusing. No air conditioner on the market could operate completely on solar power right now. After the apocalypse, with widespread power outages, they would just be useless scrap metal. And time didn't allow me to rewire the electrical system, nor did I have the conditions to install solar panels in the dormitory. Choosing evaporative coolers, simpler, more flexible, and much more practical. By the time I had been busy all day and returned to the dormitory, it was already getting dark. Since I usually studied late and returned late, the dorm managers had long been familiar with me. As soon as they saw me, they didn't ask any questions, but directly opened the gate and hurried off to dinner. I took advantage of the moment to quickly direct the workers to move all the items inside. On the morning of the third day, I bought more insulation panels and insulating paint, and personally renovated the entire dorm room. The store owner patted his chest, guaranteeing that this material could withstand temperatures up to 50 degrees Celsius. After finishing everything, I took a thorough shower. Then I did nothing, just sat quietly in the air-conditioned room, silently watching the sunset outside the window. I knew that when the sun rose tomorrow, everything would be different. I held my phone, hesitated for a long time, and finally drafted a message and sent it. "Dad, Mom, don't go out tomorrow. From now on, just pretend you never had this daughter." After sending it, I deleted them from my WeChat contacts and blocked their phone numbers. I stayed awake all night, not sleeping for a minute. Before it was fully light, the familiar alarm clock rang in the dormitory. I heard the students in the next room packing their bags, chattering as they headed to the bus to the exam venue. As for me, my exam admission ticket had been torn into pieces and thrown into the trash long ago. The dorm manager began checking each room. As soon as she saw me, she frowned and immediately pulled me out of the room. "I recognize you, you're from the honors class, aren't you? With such good grades, don't be late and miss the exam." I struggled hard to break free from her grip and explained, "Auntie, I'm not taking the exam this year." She still wanted to persuade me, but I quickly said first, "Auntie, the exam is about to start, please don't go anywhere. Can you stay with me? Because..." I saw the number above her head was a 0. She paused, her expression a little hesitant. "But I finally got a day off, and I promised my granddaughter I'd take her to the amusement park." She didn't know. Right on the way to the amusement park with her granddaughter, the horrific heat would strike. Auntie Lee was the person closest to me in school. She often secretly cleared my late return record, and every time she checked rooms, she secretly slipped food into my blanket. Once, she even mended my torn socks and bra, and when I fainted from period pain, she was the one who carried me to the infirmary. She used to say, "Other kids have parents picking them up and taking care of them, but you're always alone, so I care about you the most." All the affection I had never received from my parents, she quietly made up for. That's why I wanted to save her with all my might. Thinking this, I took 2 steps forward, grabbed her hand, and shook it coquettishly like a little girl. She couldn't resist my pleading. Sure enough, Auntie Lee smiled kindly, her eyes full of love, and gently tapped my forehead with her finger. "All right, I'll stay here with you." The moment she said that, I saw the number above her head suddenly surge from 0 to over 8,000. Half an hour before the exam, I heard someone shouting my name from below the dormitory. It was my homeroom teacher, accompanied by my parents. "Xiaohe, this exam determines your entire future and destiny. You must take responsibility for yourself. Under the scorching sun, the homeroom teacher patiently advised me with a worried tone. My parents stood next to her, pointing and cursing terribly. "Xiaohe, your mother and I have been working day and night to earn money for your education until today, and now you dare to defy us. Just you wait. If I don't break your legs, I'm not your father." As they cursed, they tried to rush into the dormitory. But the gate had long been securely locked by Auntie Lee. Auntie Lee gently stroked my hair, then lightly covered my ears. "Be good. There can be many university exams, but only one life. Do whatever you want, I'll always support you." My heart suddenly felt like it was bathed in sunlight, warm and bright. Seeing that I still wouldn't come out, the homeroom teacher called the entire school administration, who stood downstairs shouting threats at Auntie Lee. "Open the gate within 10 minutes. Otherwise, you'll be considered to have committed a serious dereliction of duty. The school has the right to fire you. Obstructing students from taking the university exam, if serious, can even lead to criminal charges." Auntie Lee stepped to the window, hands on her hips, and roared back with overwhelming defiance. "I'm an old woman with one foot in the grave, do you think I'm scared of you?" With that, she slammed the window shut with a bang. Downstairs, my parents, seeing their objective unachieved, turned to threaten the school. "My daughter refuses to take the university exam, your school is primarily responsible. She's a candidate for provincial top score. You must give us an explanation today." From a distance, the bell signaling the start of the exam rang out. I sat on the bed, silently counting down the time. In half an hour, the temperature would exceed 40 degrees Celsius. The apocalypse, officially beginning. "Xiaohe, I'm telling you, your mother and I aren't going anywhere today. If you're brave enough, just stay in there forever. Wait until you come home, and see how your parents discipline you." My parents plopped down at the foot of the dormitory building, determined to wait for me to come out. But as minutes and seconds ticked by, they began to fidget. "Why is it so hot today? My shirt is drenched. I can't stand it anymore, my throat feels like it's on fire. You stay here, I'm going to buy a bottle of water." I stood in the room, watching their every move through the window. My father got up and left, leaving only my mother behind. Indeed, they hadn't believed the warning I had sent yesterday. My mother waited and waited, but my father still didn't return. 10 minutes later, she finally couldn't bear it anymore, fanning herself as she left. Soon, shouting could be heard from the direction of the cafeteria. "I've been out in the sun burning my skin, and you're hiding in the canteen with the air conditioning on? Isn't it because of your beloved daughter? If it weren't for that crazy girl wanting to quit the exam, would I have to suffer like this?" "My beloved daughter? Isn't Xiaohe your biological daughter too?" "Fine, if you're not going out, neither am I." The two argued fiercely, neither willing to yield. Time quietly passed. The thermometer in the room had reached its maximum limit. Crack, a crisp sound. The mercury thermometer burst from overheating, mercury droplets scattering across the floor. "Oh dear!" Auntie Lee cried out and quickly bent down to clean up. I stepped forward to help, but she raised her hand to stop me. "You go sit over there. These things are poisonous, you mustn't touch them." I quietly watched her meticulously pick up each mercury droplet, sweat beading on her forehead and dripping onto the floor. My nose suddenly stung. Click, a dry sound, the air conditioner was cut off. Although I had sealed the window and door gaps with insulation, the cool air in the room quickly dissipated. The oppressive air rushed in, making even breathing difficult. I immediately took out the evaporative cooler I had modified, connecting it to the solar panel that had been fully charged after a morning of intense sunlight. I directed the fan towards Auntie Lee and me, and flicked the switch. The circulating cool breeze relieved some of the suffocating heat. At this moment, from the distant school buildings, I heard a chaotic uproar. Perhaps the students in the examination rooms had begun to resist, but were still being forced to continue the exam. The classrooms were small, crowded, and the temperature inside was at least 5 degrees higher than in the dormitory. I remembered the scene before I died in my previous life. In a panic, students desperately pounded on doors, screamed, banged on desks, and cried for help. The CO2 concentration soared, and I was sitting near the window. After only a few minutes, I suffered heatstroke and oxygen deprivation, passing out. When I woke up from the intense pain, my arm exposed to the sun was burned. My skin was covered in blisters, which, when they burst, revealed melting subcutaneous fat mixed with oozing blood. I wanted to scream, to struggle, to escape. But my body wouldn't move even an inch. Finally, I could only close my eyes in despair. Little he? Little he. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell because of the heat? I startled back to reality. Auntie Lee was looking at me with worry. She adjusted the fan to blow directly at me and constantly fanned me with a book, trying to disperse some of the heat. I crawled under the bed, pulled out a sack full of fever-reducing patches, and put a few on my forehead, hands, and feet, and on Auntie Lee. Seeing my actions, Auntie Lee's eyes widened in surprise. Little he, how do you have so many? I held her hand tightly, my gaze serious. Auntie Lee, I don't know if you'll believe me, but this isn't just a normal heat wave, it's an extreme temperature apocalypse. After hearing what I told her, Auntie Lee didn't show any fear, she just gripped my hand tighter. I've lived this long, it's been enough. Whether it's the apocalypse or anything else, don't worry, I will definitely protect you to the end. Time slowly crept towards midday. The temperature continued to rise relentlessly. Auntie Lee and I lay on the bed, heads tilted against each other, minimizing movement to conserve energy and reduce body temperature. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I answered, and my mother's voice echoed from the other end. Xiaohe. You're making your parents almost die of thirst out here. Hurry and bring down some water bottles. Her voice was commanding, like she was ordering a servant. When did you change your number? I didn't even know. My mother paused for a moment, as if surprised, but the scorching heat had burned away her last bit of patience. Don't talk so much. Do I need to report to you when I change my number? Hurry and bring the water down. And bring some food too. This cursed cafeteria isn't even serving lunch yet. Of course, there was no lunch. My school's cafeteria didn't cook its own meals, lunch every day was transferred from the middle school. But now, with the outdoor temperature nearly reaching 60 degrees Celsius, no one would dare to go out and deliver meals. I tried to sound awkward. Mom, we're not allowed to eat or drink in the dorm, and I don't have anything to bring down anyway. Why don't you and Dad try buying something from the convenience store for now? On the other end, my mother's voice turned sharp and furious. Nonsense. If the convenience store were open, would I need to call a useless person like you? If you don't want to see your parents burned alive and dying of thirst out here, then figure something out. I suggested. Did you two come by car? Maybe try going back to the parking lot, it's cooler in the car with the air conditioning. The other end reached its limit, and with a click, she hung up. I walked to the window, watching towards the cafeteria. Sure enough, soon after, two figures stumbled out. My father walked ahead, striding quickly, pulling off his t-shirt to cover his head like a hat. Behind him was my mother, hobbling because she was wearing high heels. Suddenly, she swayed and fell straight to the ground. The asphalt road was nearly 90 degrees Celsius at this point, and she immediately let out a tragic scream, then shouted my father's name, reaching out her hand, waiting for him to pull her up. But my father only glanced back at her, muttered useless, then turned and walked away without hesitation. In their eyes, people were just tools. Once their utility was lost, they were discarded like trash. Seeing my father so heartless, my mother cried out, sobbing uncontrollably, then shouted my name. He. My good daughter. Come save your mother. I paused at the window. That name? I had only heard my mother use it before I was 6 years old. Since I started elementary school, the mother in my memory had gradually become cold and rational. I had to get a perfect score to eat a lollipop. I had to be first in class to play with friends for half a day. Once, she even dragged me out for a morning run, forcing me to run 2 kilometers. I was only 6 years old then, so tired I collapsed to the ground, crying and begging my mother to carry me. But she just stood there, arms crossed, cold as a machine. "Xiaohe, the test I gave you on Saturday, you only got 98 points. I won't carry you today." From that day on, I understood. In her eyes, pleading, tears, acting cute, all were behaviors of the weak. And she only accepted me as the strong, standing above others. Now, looking at the woman sitting on the ground, holding her leg and groaning, I sighed softly. I wondered if she still remembered. That every time I needed her most, she only said one thing. "Xiaohe, you can only rely on yourself." So now, I wanted to return that same phrase to her. Perhaps she had realized that too, because she struggled to push herself up. Her palms and the tops of her feet were blistered and burned, layers of skin peeled off, revealing raw, bloody wounds. I turned away, forcing myself to pull the blackout curtain shut, not daring to watch the number above her head drop by the second. A pair of warm, large hands gently rested on my shoulders. Auntie Lee hugged me, pulling my head to rest against her chest. Our skins touched, radiating waves of stifling heat that stung my eyes and blurred my vision. To the steady hum of the fan, I slowly closed my eyes. In that moment, I seemed to drift back to a distant afternoon, where time flowed slowly. When I was a child, resting my head on my mother's lap, and sleeping soundly in absolute peace. Today marks the 5th day since the apocalypse began. It's also the 5th day without electricity or water. For the past few days, Auntie Lee and I have just been lying on the bed, trying to stay still. Because of the extreme heat, neither of us felt hungry, eating only 1 meal a day. Our main food was half a compressed biscuit, and our vegetable dish was dried fruit soaked in water. Every day, we also took a multivitamin and calcium tablet to prevent illnesses caused by lack of sunlight. If we needed to use the restroom, we went to the public one next to our room. I had already spread the floor with deodorizing cat litter, which needed to be changed about once a week. That afternoon, I unexpectedly discovered the outdoor temperature seemed to have dropped. Without professional measuring equipment, I could only rely on intuition. I gently pulled back the blackout curtain to a narrow slit and was astonished to see the leaves on the ground beginning to twirl gently in the wind. For the first time in days, there was wind. Wind meant there was a temperature difference. Feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time, Auntie Lee and I hugged each other, crying with joy. The 10th day after the apocalypse. I was no longer woken up by the heat in the middle of the night, but slept soundly until midday. Waking up, I was still drenched in sweat, my hair stuck to my cheeks. I opened my eyes and saw Auntie Lee slumped beside my bed, having fallen asleep sometime earlier. Woken by my movement, she rubbed her eyes and smiled gently. "Did you sleep well last night? It's not too hot anymore, is it?" Seeing the medical alcohol bottle scattered on the floor, I immediately understood. She felt sorry for me being woken up by the heat in the middle of the night, so she had sat by my bed, wiping me down with alcohol repeatedly. I burst into tears. Tears mixed with sweat, silently rolling down my cheeks. I opened the cabinet, brought out a large bottle of water, and met Auntie Lee's surprised gaze. I carefully poured water into a basin. "Today, let's be a little luxurious and wash our hair." Auntie Lee looked at the full basin of water, her face full of pity, and immediately refused. "This is too wasteful, your hair will just get sweaty again after washing. It's better to save the water for drinking." I didn't say much, gently pressed her to lie down on the bed, carefully immersed her hair in the water, and began to scrub. "Hurry up, or the water will evaporate." Hearing me say that, she finally lay still, obediently letting me wash her hair. I suddenly remembered a life skills class in elementary school. The assignment that day was, go home and wash your mother's hair once. In the parents group, many mothers posted videos, happily praising as their children washed their hair. "My good child, Mom is so touched," or My child is so skilled, with this talent, I won't have to go to the salon anymore. But my mother, as soon as she saw me approach, pushed me away roughly. The basin of hot water I was holding spilled all over me. She turned, picked up her phone, and sent a voice message to the group. "Teacher, elementary school is not kindergarten, it should focus on teaching knowledge. Practical classes not only take up time for practice problems but are also meaningless. Does the school want to train our children to be hairdressers? I will propose to the principal to cancel practical classes and instead teach a math lesson to help students adapt to middle school studies earlier." After that incident, practical classes were indeed eliminated. From then on, no one in the class wanted to play with me anymore. As soon as I came near, they would throw sand at me and curse. "It's your fault. If it weren't for your mom, we'd still have practical classes. Her mom's a witch. Don't play with her. My mom said her mom is a troublemaker, she told me to stay away from both of them." "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" I jolted awake from my memories, seeing Auntie Lee looking at me in a panic. I bowed my head, gently wiped my tears on her shoulder, then looked up with a smile. "It's nothing, really. I just thought, if only you were my mother." Unexpectedly, that sentence made Auntie Lee immediately flustered, twisting her hands in her apron, laughing awkwardly. "If I had a daughter as understanding and kind as you, that would truly be a blessing for many lifetimes. I'm a few years older than your parents, if you don't mind then. I'll consider myself to have another daughter." I shook my head vigorously. "Why would I mind? I agree." Auntie Lee and I looked at each other and burst into laughter, our laughter echoing lightly through the stifling days. Just then, from the dormitory courtyard below, an angry shout suddenly rang out. "Xiaohe! Get down here right now." It was my father's voice. I pulled the blackout curtain open to a narrow slit and looked down. He was shirtless, wearing only his underwear, his hair disheveled, and his body covered in bloody scratches. In his hand was a flattened, empty water bottle. A sense of unease surged within me. He looked up, and those deranged eyes instantly met mine through the curtain slit. In that moment, I realized, that man, so unfamiliar I no longer recognized him as my father. Since I'd been discovered, there was no need to hide anymore, so I called down. "Why are you alone? Where's Mom?" He bared his teeth in a grin, only then did I see blood smeared at the corners of his lips. That foolish woman got hurt and still wanted to drag me down with her, demanding the last half bottle of water. I wanted to teach her a lesson, so I locked her in the car. This morning when I opened the door, that woman had stopped breathing. Luckily, I found her in time, otherwise her blood would have dried up. What a waste. With that, he disgustingly licked his lips. My whole body went cold, my heart pounded, disbelieving my ears. He had drunk my mother's blood. "How could you do that? She's your wife." He sneered, his gaze sliding to me, becoming strange and perverse. "So what if she's my wife? Even if it were my own daughter, I'd dare to do it." In his eyes, I was no longer a person, but merely a living water bottle. After speaking, he threw the water bottle away and began kicking the door. The iron door rattled violently, groaning as if about to break. As if tireless, he continued to kick. Once, twice. Finally, creak, the door collapsed. I immediately pulled the curtain closed, locked the room door, then dragged the study desk to block it from behind. In the hallway, heavy footsteps echoed, one step at a time, getting closer and closer. Bang! The room door was slammed hard, shaking violently. My heart seemed to skip a beat. Outside the door, a deep, hoarse voice, like a demon, whispered. "If it weren't for you, would I have been stuck in that damned car for days? Your life was given by me, it's only natural if I kill you." I trembled, trying to keep my voice calm, and called out loudly. "Dad, I'm your biological daughter. Don't kill me. I still have water here." As soon as he heard water, his voice immediately shot up. "You have water and didn't give it to me sooner? Hurry, bring it out." Don't be angry, Dad, I'm getting it now. But I'm scared. Why don't you reach in and grab it? I'll put it right by the door. I placed a large barrel of water close to the edge of the door, then opened a small gap, just enough for him to see. Sure enough, he lunged like a madman, reaching in, still hissing. If there's water, who would want to drink human blood? It's disgusting, it makes me want to vomit. The moment his hand touched the handle, I put all my strength into it, pushing the door hard to close it. His hand was caught in the door crack, snap. The sound of bone breaking echoed crisply. UB*TCH. I'll kill you. His screams tore through the air like a cornered beast. Just then, from the shadows behind the opposite door, Auntie Lee darted out like an arrow. A sharp iron hook in her hand plunged straight into his throat. Blood splattered. In less than 2 minutes, he collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing before becoming still. Auntie Lee squeezed through the door crack, quickly locked it, then hugged me tightly. She helped me back to the bed, pulled me into her embrace, and continuously patted my back, not letting me turn to look. I don't know how long passed before I slowly regained my senses. I lowered my head, looked at my hands, and whispered. Did I kill someone? Auntie Lee shook her head repeatedly. No, it wasn't you. It was me. I was the one who killed him. She gently patted my back, whispering comfort in my ear. If you feel bad, just cry. It'll feel better after you cry. But I didn't know if it was because I had been without water for too long, or because the numbness in my heart was too great. My eyes were dry, not a single tear could fall. The 15th day after the apocalypse. It was also the last time I saw the number above my head. From then on, I didn't look in the mirror anymore. Because I didn't want to witness those numbers gradually return to zero. Regardless of whether I survived the apocalypse or not. That day, everything was calm as usual. Auntie Lee and I lay on the bed, like so many days before, chatting idly, talking about nothing in particular. Until night fell, the clock hands slowly past 12. Another day had passed. We looked at each other and smiled, because we had lived another day. The 20th day after the apocalypse. The outdoor temperature gradually dropped to around 40 degrees Celsius. The apocalypse felt like a dream. Many times, I even felt like I had just experienced a slightly harsher than usual summer. On the 30th day, the temperature completely returned to normal. The government began dispatching the military to clear out residential areas, schools, hospitals. Auntie Lee took me to the police station. She said she had killed someone and had come to confess. At the same time, I presented the letter of forgiveness I had prepared long ago, emphasizing that we had only acted in self-defense. Ultimately, because the number of dead and injured was too vast to be accurately counted. Auntie Lee was declared innocent and released on the spot. I became an orphan, and I didn't want to go anywhere. So I followed Auntie Lee home. Only then did I learn, that day, when she decided to stay at school with me. Her little granddaughter at home had cried inconsolably. Auntie Lee's son and daughter-in-law had no choice but to take leave and take the little girl to the water park. That day, there were few customers, and the three of them hid in the changing room, enduring for 30 days. On the day of their reunion, the whole family embraced, crying with happiness. As for me, I stood quietly to the side, a little awkward and unsure of what to do. Auntie Lee reached out and pulled me closer, hugging me tightly. From today, this girl is my daughter. All three of them were stunned. After a moment of silence, Auntie Lee's daughter-in-law was the first to speak. She gently patted her husband's shoulder, then put her arms around me, smiling. You're truly blessed to have found such a beautiful and strong little sister. The young man, not good with words, just patted my shoulder firmly. From now on, consider this your home. The little girl beside them grinned brightly, her eyes narrowing into crescent moons. Awesome. Next time we go to the water park, I'll finally have someone to ride the slides with. The end.